Hey everyone, welcome to the newest episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling. Today's guest is an indie rock singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and producer based in my hometown of Atlanta, Georgia. He's got 4 new songs out in July, Piano Time and Offered, and So You Go On and Two Sides. I also learned during the interview that he has 2 new songs that are coming out the day after we recorded this interview. So when it is out, the other 2 songs will be out for you to listen to as well. Before we get the episode started, please make sure to like and subscribe to this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to follow us at Parker Whirling and at @onthatnote_podcast. And on that note, please welcome Klark Sound. I'm sitting here with Klark Sound, an indie rock / folk prog. Really it's just genre bending. Like, there's so much going on in your music. Singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, producer based out of Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you for joining me for an episode of On That Note. I was really pumped to hear your newest singles, Piano Time and Offered. And then I realized that you had 2 singles you released right before that, So You Go On and Two Sides, and basically 4 songs in 1 month, which is that's a lot of songs in a month. What made you decide to release them as pairs instead of an EP,
That's interesting you say that, because I was wondering if anyone noticed that. Funnily enough, I've actually got 2 more coming out tomorrow.
Oh, look at that.
And yeah, like literally I've always liked this idea of paired songs. Maybe it goes back to like singles having an A side and a B side. And so it's a really nice, it can be a really fun artistic experiment to kind of, have one song and be like, well, what's the complementary kind of like, how do I feel? What, kind of is the other side of this coin, and then in terms of maybe why I'm doing it is I have so much music and I sit on so much music, and I really want to experiment with being more prolific in a sort of more carefree way. I think I sometimes don't always understand the kind of magnitude and weight that people put on like their releases as like holding on to something permanent, whereas I feel like music expression creation is very much like a changing landscape, and I'm kind of like more interested in expressing my progress publicly than maybe in these like kind of segmented like stages. So releasing music often, I think, is like one of my strong suits because I make so much of it. So I'm trying to just lean into that aspect and experiment with something new, So that's been my main goal with that.
That's a great philosophy to have. There was one person I interviewed on this show, Rubber Band Gun, who I actually ended up working with making an album, or an EP, sorry. And he kind of said something that blew my mind that goes with what you're saying, which is like, there's not one release that you have that's going to like encapsulate you perfectly as an artist forever. So you shouldn't put that weight on just one release. Like, you should be happy to share, like you said, your progress as you're doing it in real time.
Exactly. I mean, and the more that I grow up and interact with more musicians, it's like I feel like I'm kind of blessed to actually be motivated to like make my own shit, as opposed to not like have kind of that drive. It's kind of like, it's a hard thing to justify if you're spending all your time doing something like solely creative, but sharing your stuff, putting it out there is like a great way to kind of validate it, for if no other reason than just like, I'm doing it, like I don't even care if anyone hears it, but it's fun and it's done, and I think that it's totally true. You can't hold on to something as like your pinnacle creation, or you can, but you might be disappointed, as opposed to just creating these, I like to think of them as messages in a bottle, like music is like, you kind of just make these things that you put into a bottle and you throw them out into the ocean, and you can't really control where they're going to go and who's going to see them, but you got to keep making them. You can't just keep all your notes lying on the table. You got to put some in the bottle and cork some of them, and you got to have the idea to write the next one. You kind of got to have this throughput. It's more about living through that, So it's really freeing. I really highly recommend anyone who's artistically inclined, especially in this day and age in the music industry, to just give less of a fuck. Just go. Just if you got a good idea, it's probably a good idea. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Seriously.
would be your advice for someone who's like nervous to put out maybe their very first song ever or their first album or even get starting on it?
My advice would be you are the only one that can like say if it's done, and that sometimes it's really helpful to get someone you trust and back up to reassure you. And I think a lot of people, when they make music in the beginning, are super closed up because you're learning a lot about yourself and you're learning how to do it. But some of the most look towards other people for encouragement if you're ever feeling down, because most people are just happy to interact with people doing creative stuff. And I think that it can feel very isolating like that, but you can just really lean into the communities around you. I think it's really, really good if you're ever feeling down. And other than that, like, you write the rules too. Like, don't ever. The whole art is so cool. Making music is so cool because there's no like right way to do it. It's one of the only things where it's like, yeah, you could do that. Like, you could distort the whole track and it's release it, and that's what it is. It's just a song. Like, it's fine. I think that people are really critical when they perceive. You have to like balance being critical of your own shit for yourself and from other people, and then at the whole time not give a fuck. So it's this really weird balance, and I think looking towards other people, your friends, reach out, break outside of the music realm if you're feeling like fucked up about what you're doing, because everyone else is going to be like, nice, dude, like, that's great, like, sounds awesome, like.
Yeah,
It's
that
like,
that is so true. Like sometimes you just need to show it to somebody who doesn't even know that much about music so they can be like, "Whoa, you made this? What the hell?"
literally, and you're like, oh yeah, I did make it, holy shit.
It's just good to get a different perspective, and it is helpful to lean on the community of artists who understand what you are trying to do and can help in a multitude of ways, whether that be helping you get a new perspective on the mix, or maybe a melody that could be there, or a harmony that could be there, or maybe you should take this one thing out. But it is hard to find the people that know how to communicate with you so that you don't take criticism too harshly, but you're taking it the right way and that they're giving it the right way.
Yeah, I definitely think that patience in finding those communities is essential, because yeah, like you said, not everybody's going to get what you're throwing down immediately, and not even everyone is prepared to open up themselves to other people's creative output and like not get fucked up about their own shit. Like, that's something, just getting older and growing up and being in with people who are more comfortable with themselves is like infinitely easier to do any sort of creative collaboration, because everyone's just like knows that they're solid with themselves. And I think that that's a huge barrier to true creative collaboration, and like this kind of positive feedback towards a good thing. You got to find your people for sure. My bandmates and the people that I've recently, in the last, especially over COVID, kind of gotten to know, and it's like people who get what I'm trying to do at a different level, a deeper level, a musical level, and they believe in me, but they really more believe in my music, which is cool, because I'd rather have that happen than someone, you know, that's what it's about for me, at least. So yeah, you kind of just gotta be open to that, and everyone's community is different, and you know, yeah, it's wild.
I like what you said about knowing yourself and hanging around people that know themselves, because that does seem to be a pretty big barrier if the people you're around, or even yourself, if you're kind of uncomfortable with what you're doing, it can really be a creative barrier, especially if other people are like they want to insert themselves in your song instead of help prop it up, be or prop it up as like the true what's the word? Just like the true representation of how you are in that moment. Like that's the goal, really, to try to make this the truest expression of yourself right now. And it's a delicate thing. You don't want to fuck with that.
Yeah, you gotta like find that way to like serve the music first, whether that's and if you're playing with somebody else's musical idea, then like you want to be conscious of like how your interpretation is like contributing to their idea. And I think that that's like, the more that a band member gets to know the band leader, then it's, in a situation like that, then it's more constructive. They know how to like kind of feel out like, oh, I know he likes this kind of thing, so I'm going to throw this on here, versus like we're a collaborative entity and we're co-writing. And honestly, that thing about knowing yourself, like, I know it sounds corny as fuck, but it's like, and being comfortable, it's like with yourself, it's like that's the only thing that you need to focus on if you want to make art, if you want to do creative shit. Like, sure, practice your instrument to like speak better and shit, but just like work on like actually accepting who you are, actually accepting your limitations, actually like being like, I'm good at this, or I want to get better at this, and I'm like, I have the potential to do this, and this is what I'm really good at. Like, it's actually the most freeing and the most important element to like creative work in general. I think it's cannot be understated how much you need to just be like not arrogant, but think you're the shit, so that you can have a good time while you're doing what you're doing, like for no other reason, not to like boast yourself, just to like be like, I got this, I'm on top of this. It's kind of
Yeah,
funny.
a healthy way of doing that for sure.
Literally, bro.
Before we keep going, I want to make sure I'm hearing like a noise in the back of your room or like somewhere coming out. I don't know. Is that me or is there like somebody vacuuming?
Does it sound like this?
Yeah.
Okay. It's my laptop.
Oh, that's okay. It's actually not that bad because my laptop does that.
I'm gonna do a little bit of cardioid rejection.
Okay. I'm like, I wish I knew what that term meant.
The null spot behind the.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
You know what I mean? At least.
Yeah, I don't hear it at all anymore, and that's a lot better. Hey. I was worried it was like a leaf blower or something.
Oh no! I mean, around here it'd be like cars, dudes doing wheelies.
Okay. Damn, that sucks.
It's cool, actually.
Yeah, they're pretty good, I guess. But yeah. Anyway, shit. What were we saying? I didn't mean to like blow us
you're good.
Off track.
We were talking about knowing yourself and creative work and collaboration and how that's important.
Right. Yeah, I think the knowing yourself really comes down to, like you're saying, like, you don't want to be arrogant, but knowing yourself means you know your strengths and you know your weaknesses, so you can surround yourself with the people whose strengths complement your weaknesses so that you create something that's bigger than yourself.
Literally, dude. I mean, I know for myself as an artist, like, even this, like, I don't have a great time setting up microphones and like getting sounds in the studio, and like, I mean, it's cool and I can do it and I know how to do it, but in like from an artistic sense, I like have recently kind of over the past year like been trying to find people to mix my music and to like interject their own production elements and creative mindset into the shit that I do, because I'm like, I know that at a certain point my interest stops. It's not my ability so much as it's like, man, someone else is going to give more of a fuck about this. And that's really cool to know where you're like, damn, like this guy, if I can like, and then if you're your friends and you can pay him a little money, if you have money, like to kind of like keep a creative thing going in a circle, it's like really cool. It feels like you're actually doing something outside of the world of like just the very like structured, like kind of almost like one-dimensional element that is like streamed music and like how the music industry looks now. And kind of segues into how I feel about playing live music and shit. Is like, that whole thing is like you're like you're being vulnerable with somebody else and they're like taking it from you and like holding it nicely and then like blowing their own kind of like crazy thing onto it. And it can be really, really marvelous if you figure out if you accept, you're like, actually, I don't really fuck with this. Like, I'm going to get this guy to do it. And like, that's cool. That's fucking cool. Like, give shit up if you think that it'll be better with somebody else, you know? That's growing up, literally.
That's a great soundbite right there. I love that.
It's true.
The collaboration process is an interesting one, and I saw that your Betacam EP, which you put out earlier this year, was the first release of yours that you did not produce yourself. You called it your mini orchestral album. So how was this experience working with so many people and so many different moving parts, and on top of that, giving the reins of producing to somebody else?
I really enjoyed it. I think that for everyone involved, it was a learning experience in every way. We kind of like were going at it like we didn't. It might seem from the outside like we really planned it out, but we didn't really plan it out that much. We were like, we would get to certain stages of the thing and be like, I think we need to like add some strings and like orchestral shit to that, and then it's like, all right, better write the parts, like better get the thing. And so in that aspect, actually, what was great was that I myself felt like I was bringing something to the table. I was bringing like, hey, I got this music and I got this 5-piece band and we can do this. And then I'm with the producers and they're like, yeah, like this would be, we should do it like this. We could do this crazy thing. And then they look back at me and I'm like, well, I know a string player and I could probably ask him to help. And I know this thing and blah, blah, blah. And it was amazing because it was COVID. And so anyone I reached out to and I was like, hey, I got this like crazy album I'm working on. I want to add this thing to it. And everyone was just like, let's go, let's jump on board. Like let's, you know, come together and like do this thing together. And I think that without the whole pandemic, I don't think that would have been as like much of a thing. So for me, it was really like, wow, like people actually fuck with this, even though it's like weird, you know? And I think that was really humbling and really like, I learned so much just about arranging and stepping outside of the small lens of whatever you do all the time, you know? And so for me, coming in, having someone else take these elements like, how do you want the drums to sound? Mic placement, you know? Blah, blah, blah. And then having me being able to be like, well, I know the song goes like this and the words are this here and, you know, I want my guitar here. But like, it's weird how to say that sometimes sacrificing control is like the best way to get good ideas. Because like, you're spending energy on the fixation of like holding these things in place versus just like kind of like submitting them to be whatever they're going to be because you trust other people. So that element was really cool. It was really humbling. And a great learning experience. So I can't wait to do it again and do it even better, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear the next time you really take that approach. And, you know, what you said about releasing control, that really, I think, applies to all facets of life. It's like, if you try to really lock down and control the things that happen to you, you're really going to just be disappointed because nothing is ever going to work out 100% the way you want it to. I mean, maybe it will, and then something will come and knock it down. Like, you just have to be willing and open to all experiences that come at you and be grateful for them and take the best out of those single moments. And that works with music especially, because how many moments during your creation process are like the best things that come out of a song or something you could have never planned?
It's every time. It's like, it's every time, you know? It's a wild experience with like, that's the thing of playing live. Like, that's why playing live is so cool, you know? With a real, like,
yeah,
then
those
you're just
live
like,
moments you can't,
you can't recreate those.
You can't force like the audience to enjoy it.
It's really
Sorry,
weird.
I think we're definitely having some lag here.
I know, it's cool. It's cool because I think we're both also at a profound part of the conversation where we're like thinking about it and we're like, yeah, I think it's like that, but like, I don't even know. I mean, I guess like perfectionism has to, I think a large part of this is like, and especially if you're listening to the music I'm making, like it's about fighting perfectionism, because nothing in life is perfect. You can strive for perfectionism, but you will not necessarily attain it, and most of the time you just end up disappointed. So what you have to do is like set yourself up for the best version of that you can, and a lot of times at the stage where I'm at, that means relying on other people to do their best. And so when you get into a musical situation, like I love releasing music and working on this stuff and doing all the parts in my room, and it's great. But sometimes the most like profound and coolest shit happens when I'm like in rehearsal with the band, and I'm like, holy fuck, like we just played that, we just executed that shit in real time, and it sounded crazy and it was cool, and like holy shit, like that's what it's all about, like it's weird. I love recorded music, and I like listening to music, and I like listening to records, and sometimes I wish I listened to music more, but like for my pastime, like on Spotify or whatever, like discovering shit. But man, I'm obsessed with like executing that shit live. Like I really want to just have, that's my real goal with all of this Klark Sound shit is, sure, have great records and release them and keep more, but damn, I want to pull up to a spot with a band and just fucking transcend into somewhere new with like where, just as I tell my band, to bridge the gap of like polyrhythmic diversity, like convince people that syncopation is actually cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no, you like this, I swear.
Well, you do have a lot of syncopation in your songs.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like you really have some like nutty parts, but you keep it all together. Like it doesn't ever fall apart. Like you can follow along. It's almost like Steely Dan on bath salts or something.
Yeah. I think, I come from I played a lot of percussion when I was growing up. Hand percussion, African drums, bell patterns. So, that's all about parts interlocking like this, And so I've always liked that, or like, yeah, or just like some weird grouping over the whole thing that like bleeds in and out of the downbeat, It's yeah, I don't know. I've always been obsessed with that. Even on guitar, like Brazilian guitar, I've always liked a lot that, and I grew up playing Django style guitar,
Right.
Mhm. That stuff's
I
really
love
great.
the Instagram video you did where you're playing the kind of bossa nova vibe on the guitar, and then you had the hi-hat, and you did like some weird shit with it. The hi-hat was just doing 4/4, but the guitar was like going in and out, and then it would start playing on the 2 instead of the 1 or something. It was wild.
No, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is the idea of like, I think I get this a lot in my unstable connection. I get that a lot in my music about like, even my drummer is sometimes like, yeah, like this is weird, no one does this, and I'm like, yeah, but I kind of like how it sounds, where it'll be like some grouping of 5, but I know this sounds so music and nerdy, it's like so hard to, it's kind of weird to explain in words, but it's like, yeah, it's just, there is always a big beat over all my music. You can hear it, even if it's like like, so like whatever you want can happen as long as those line up,
Right.
So, and like I guess I like the idea of trying to like musically like lure people in with like songs to this world that I feel like I'm like, hey, like check out this cool like rhythmic like semi psychedelic acoustic psychedelic world that we're going into. I've always really liked that sound, and it yields some okay results, musically, the shit I've made. But yeah, that whole weaving in and out of the one, or like defining where it is like, I like to play with that, to help, so people can not do so much of this. Like, I'm following the one. It's like, don't even, just like,
Right.
do less, bro. Do less. Just, it's still there. Just don't think about it.
Yeah,
You know?
it seems like most of your music like really plays with the balance of logical brain and artistic brain, with like all the crazy time things and all the syncopation, and yet when you break it down, it's still a very catchy song to listen to and very pretty, and all the harmonies are nice, and it's like you can enjoy both sides of it.
Yeah, I wonder if it has something to do with my interest in like electronics and like it's probably just a manifestation of everything that you are, you know. But and people ask me a lot like, are you trained or do you do that? And it's like I barely know how to read. I don't write any of my shit out. I play all by ear. I teach my band. When I need to write charts for the vocals or something, I'll like, you know, grind through that shit, and it's not often correct, and I have to ask my friend. Or even for Betacam, I got the flautist to do all the charts because he's just so much fucking faster at it. So I think that plays into the element of me like maybe making heady or like nerdy nerdy music, like musicians music sometimes, but it's like more trying to not be or like cannot be because I'm not analyzing it like that. I'm really just like in the room, just like vibing out and adding parts. And most of my music starts on one instrument, singing and playing, so it's still like a song, like you're saying. So yeah, it's funny, man. There's so many different modes. I think making music is about exploring what it means to make it for yourself. Whether that's like I'm gonna go practice fucking scales for like 4 years and just become the shredder, and you're just like, dude, fuck yeah, like that's just some shit I couldn't do. Or you're gonna like just write like 3-chord folk songs and about like life, and they're just gonna be beautiful, in that way. There's so many angles, and they're all valid and really cool, you know.
I like that. You just gotta do practice what makes sense to you, because there are so many things to music to get good at. Like I'm not the shredder by any means. I don't know like any scales other than C major, and I never use that. Like I don't think about it that way. I'm sure I use it, but not on purpose. And I just
Yeah, like
it's like you
yeah.
can't you should do what interests you the most. And right now I'm personally more interested in like what can I do with just a few chords, and instead of like doing electronic drum beats, which was at one point what I was into. And it's like evolving with that and figuring out what you like and working with that and working on that is so beneficial. And I really want to talk to you about, you've released so much music over the years. Like just on your own name, you've released 14 separate releases on Bandcamp. That's not even including the other projects you've been on. So what would be some breakthrough moments, or, yeah, it's a lot. What would be some breakthrough moments or big lessons that you've learned over these years that, was there a project that really kind of you did and it blew your mind, like you learned this huge thing, or is it just kind of gradually over time?
I think it's a little bit it's both, because I will say that like in terms of an encouraging sense, like writing songs was not always as easy as it was for me now. It wasn't ever hard, but it was definitely like I can look at my past body of work and see myself at different stages and what I was working on, what I was getting better at. I think when I was doing my old solo project, Stranger Sounding, back in, what was it, 2016, I did an album over the summer called Go to Mungo. I recorded it all myself in the classic style. And it was the first time that I really was like, all right, I'm making a record. I'm going to like do them all at the same time. I'm going to do them all over one summer. I'm going to like do all the songs are going to be written beforehand. I'm going to go into the studio and track just the acoustic guitars for 1 week. Then I'm going to do all the drums for 1 week. Then I'm going to go through and do the stage process. And it was really cool. And it taught me about how like you can take, I think that was like the first time I was like, oh, you can like make an album into an idea, like a larger musical concept in how you actually make it. And I think so that was really great. But I think that like recording hasn't always been the way that I make breakthroughs. How's my connection? Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good, man. Just checking. But like, I think breakthrough wise, it's like, how do I describe it? It's almost like I would go out into the world and learn new things, and I'd come back to the recording process, and it would be like representative of what I'd learned. If that makes any sense, you know, that Go to Mungo, for example, was like right after I'd finished recording a big record with my old band called King Guru, and we had done it all ourselves, and we had made this record, and I was like, I want to do this for myself. Like, I think I know what it is now. And so I did that, and it was like, oh, and I learned even more through the process, but it was almost like I had like learned this information and then bookmarked it by making a record. And then later on, some of those other things too, I felt like I was getting better at songwriting and lyricism and like being more like actually instilling how I felt into music or a message to some like palpable kind of description. And then I would make kind of another like weird folk album. And I think with this Klark Sound shit, I was kind of like, I wanted to start a project that I felt like was more encompassing of me as a person. I didn't want to create an entity outside of myself that was a band or a musician or an entity that like was marketable. It was like, this is just me, and I just make music all the time, and I'm gonna start a band, and like, this is my life. Like, I don't care if nobody ever hears my shit. Like, I don't have a choice. This is what I do, right? Like, so it was kind of like the most freeing thing was almost like, now making music and making records is only for me to bookmark my knowledge, to bookmark what I've learned and how far I've come. And I think that's why I like to make so much of it. It's like I like to build stuff. I have electronics projects all over my house, and there's some Legos from when I was a kid up here, and just you name it. It's all these like creating these things. So it's really interesting. I think that every record I could name something that I was getting better at, something that I felt like it represented to me in terms of like, even if it was like, yeah, I just decided to like stop sitting on music and like remember that I actually make shit that's okay, and I just put music out, and it's like, that's it. Like, that's what it meant to me, you know? You got to find reasons to do it. You got to find reasons to make it worth it, you know? Because I'm not interested in the aesthetic elements of music and what people perceive of it or what I look like or what the vibe is. Like, I just care about the music, for better, for worse, you know? So I'm leaning into that. That's why I like making so much of it and being prolific, you know?
Yeah, that really brings us full circle to what we were talking about at the beginning. You know, like holding on to these songs and not releasing them is detrimental, because you won't have those phases that you go through to learn and carry on into the next phase and into the next bookmark. That was a good word to use, bookmark, like, because it is how it feels. Like, you're never gonna be 100% satisfied with what you already did, but you will be able to take all those lessons that you learned subconsciously and take them into the next project that will make that one even better and that one even better. And you'll be able to take those lessons, apply them to like who you are in the current moment, because who you were back then couldn't have learned the lessons that you know now if you didn't actually do it. That's kind of a weird way of saying it,
Yeah.
but I think you know what I mean.
No, it is. It's literally that, because it's like I don't know. I think about, you know, I don't always read real like quotes from famous artists or whatever, but I remember this one Bob Dylan quote that's always stuck with me. You know, Bob Dylan's all right. He's, you know, great lyricist. I like Bob Dylan, you know. I don't say I listen to him all the time, but he's inspiring for sure. And especially when he says things like, as long as you're always becoming, you're in the right track. And I was like, that's perfect. That's how I feel. It's just like, I don't know what I want to do, but I sure as know it's something. And I think that I'm lucky to have found my voice, and so early in this thing of music, I feel lucky to be so motivated and happy to work all the time on it. You know, it's really a blessing, and everyone I meet and talk to is friendly, and I just want to be a positive force in the musical experience of the world, because life is short and tragic, and there's some really good things that can come out of playing and making music and interacting with people on the essence of just like shit that can only be experienced in the moment, which is music, you know. So yeah, I think you gotta, yeah, it's great, man. It's weird.
It's great. Well, that was very, very well put.
Yeah,
and I think that's a great segue into the last 5 here, where I'll just ask you 5 questions and we'll be done. All right, question number 1 is in the studio or playing live?
Which one do I prefer?
Yeah.
Depending on the day, playing live.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure
I love the
being in lockdown for a
yeah.
year.
I love the studio, but it's almost like I'm doing something different. It's like trying to ask me if I like, you know, it's really different. It's the same, but it's different. It's really weird. It's like I'm not seeking the same thing when I go to those places. But right now I'd say playing live.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
I feel like when you're in the studio, it's like you're trying to conjure up this spirit, as opposed to in the playing live. It's like it's already there. You just have to give it to someone now.
Yeah, like I feel like in the studio, you are like looking into yourself and like trying to just like feel these things out of the vibe of the air or the musical thing that's there, especially if you're writing in a writing environment where you're trying to write on the floor. And when I always talk about this with my bandmates when we're playing live, is like holding a flame in complete control. Like that's a different sort of thing. You're like holding this like burning orb, and you don't want to like be tensing and like having a hard time. You just want to be fucking holding it and like being like, here it is. And it's like burning hot. There's the bassist.
Hey, what's up?
Like, yeah, he's my roommate. But like that shit, it's a different thing. But right now I've been trying to just, you know, obviously shows are coming back, but it's not as quickly as any of us would like. But
well, I'll definitely have
that's
to
what I've been into
check
recently.
out one of your shows when you're playing here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Do you know when your next one will be?
I'll let you all know. We have one on the books right now for November 2nd. Okay. I think it's in East Atlanta at like fucking motherfucking 529, the classic.
Yeah, nice.
Playing with our friends Green Screen and this band from out of town called Tone Stark Bandit. School band. It's like a duo,
nice.
Kind of synthy rock, psych rock explosions.
Cool. Well, I'll have to check them out before I come to the show.
Yeah.
Awesome. Question number 2 is, what do you think is a perfect album front to back?
Perfect album front to back. Recently or of all time? You know, when
whatever
I was growing up,
choose.
I recently listened to. Okay, I listened to this record recently by a local artist named Black Nash that I really, really liked. Just this really good songwriter guy, and the music is like, it's not super complex, but like the instrumentation is very convincing, and the vocals are really great, and I really like the lyrics. And so it was the first record that I'd heard in a while from especially a local musician where I was like, damn, I like listening to this whole thing. Like, I didn't skip a song, and like I listened to the whole thing. Like, that's crazy, you know. I don't always do that, you know. And then as far as music in my life that has been super important to me, and like that I always thought was really good when I was growing up. I think this is funny and probably like corny as fuck, but I really liked Fleet Foxes. And really,
nice.
Yeah, I really liked them growing up. I think that makes a lot of sense. And that one record that everyone knows is a really great record, Helplessness Blues. It's definitely a perfect record. So
I've had a couple people say that on the show.
I mean, it's great. You know, that's my like, all right, okay, I'm gonna choose the corporate best record, but it's also actually objectively good. So what are we gonna do? Like, you know, it's just such a crazy question because there's so many, and like if you ask me in 2 days, I could probably tell you another one. I mean, like even just like look at my phone, I'm like, well, dude, Burt Bacharach has made some albums that are just like so fire, and I'm just like, ah, shit, like they're all good. I'm like, I love Frank Zappa. He has some amazing albums. Like, damn, music is so expansive. But right now, it's that I've been really looking for local artists that like I really like. That guy Black Nash is great. My buddy Alan Love, this band Mammalarkey in town. There's so many like great, just like genuine music. That's the one that speaks to me. But yeah.
So that's definitely what makes a perfect album to you. Being
yeah,
genuine.
like literally, like it sounds like they were actually behind what they were doing. Like I don't know, like not a lot of shit sounds like that to me. A lot of shit sounds contrived or like sounds like you're trying to do something for the sake of it being a way so that you get attention, which is cool. I don't experience music like that. I don't go into the studio being like, I heard a song by this person. I really like it. I'm going to make a song like that. Like, I've never experienced that. That's cool if you do. That's awesome. But I can generally hear that on the other end, So when I get into a place where I'm listening to music really intently, the stuff that's like, damn, this person came up with this shit and was like, I don't know what the fuck this is, but I'm making it. Like, that's whatever it is, whatever the quality of the music is, like fidelity. It kind of is like one of those real recognized real thing where it's like, if you're looking for a certain thing in music you make, you can hear it in what other people make. And that's kind of what like gets me going, Yeah. So those two records I know for me were always like, oh, this seems like genuine as fuck and vulnerable,
And original.
There's also so many, like, there's so much shit. I definitely tell myself as like, I'm not hip. I'm not like a hip guy. I'm not plugged in. I don't be like doing the research. Like, I'm not a Luddite, but I'm definitely like, oh, like that guy's famous. Like, oh, cool. Like, oh, who's that? Oh, he's big. And oh, nice. Yeah, never heard of him. Cool. It's but like respect. Like literally so much respect. But I'm like, oh shit. Like I gotta get on the internet more often. For better for worse.
Question number 3 is, who's your dream artist or producer to work with?
Ooh, good question. Dream artist to work with. Damn. I would love. There's this guy. Oh my god. There's this guy, this really cool guitarist. Let me see if I can find him in my liked music. He's done a lot of stuff for. I'll say in a pinch, like there's two kind of different genres that I would say I would go down. Is like one of them is working with other songwriters. Like I would love to work with this guy from the band Grizzly Bear from a while ago named Daniel Rawson, though he's a little bit older than us, and I don't think he makes music like that. But I've always been inspired by his like aesthetic approach to harmony and like very like cinematic writing style that is super inspiring. I would love to work with like some crazy like. I would love to like work with some crazy pop singer. Just anybody, just for the shit. I would love to work with ABBA. Fuck it, actually.
Whoa,
that would be sick as fuck.
ABBA. Not expecting that.
It would be sick. I mean, I like ABBA a lot, but I also really like, it's like, I like this guy, Alex Eisenberg, out in like Portland, making like this like crazy kind of like, what do you call it, cabaret like songs or something like Baroque style. Like, I don't know, there's just so much, but almost like maybe I'm a little bit interested in like the aspect of a songwriter. I'd love to work with someone who like is going deep in this like writing department that I don't really know about, and then someone who's doing something like in like this crazy glassy realm of like super perfected designed music, even from how it sounds at least, where I'm just like, yo, I know nothing about that shit, but I know I can probably shred some guitar on that, so like let's link and see what's up.
Yeah,
like those are kind of that's probably my two things, those two angles are what I'm interested in, but I haven't really given it much thought.
Right. Someone I thought that would be interesting would be Pino Palladino. Do you know him?
Yes, dude. Pino Palladino is lit.
An absolute legend.
He's a legend yeah, dude. And his son also plays bass.
That doesn't surprise me, but I didn't even know he had a son.
He's also tall, also plays bass.
Yeah, that makes sense. Dude, I saw him. I was at the studio in LA with my friends who like have helped produce stuff for me, and Pino Palladino was in the parking lot when I walked out, and well, the way it happened was I was in the studio and one of the guys comes in and he's like, "Oh, like it looks like Pino's out there. They're doing a photo shoot or something. I guess they just finished their album." And they kept talking about him, and I'm like, is this Pino Palladino? They're like, "Oh yeah, you know him?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah, I know." He's like the only bassist I knew when I started playing bass, so I just watched John Mayer Trio all the time and like learned his bass riffs. And they were like, "Yeah, he's outside just taking a smoke break right now." And I was like, "Yo, I think I forgot something in my car. I'll be right back."
And you went and said, "What's up?"
I gave him the nod, but I was too nervous to say anything. But he said, "Hey," so I said hello to Pino Palladino.
Dude. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's getting all those gigs. He's probably a nice guy.
Yeah. They said he was a really nice guy. They've talked to him a handful of times.
Oh, here's the guy that I found, the guitarist. His name's Nate Mersandow.
Nate Mersandow. Cool.
I don't know if you ever heard this record. It's called Joy Techniques. It's a really crazy album.
Okay, I'll check it out.
It's very like experimental jazz, electronic. Like I don't know. It's just like I heard the guitar playing and I was like, how do you do that? Huh. That's a
Joy Techniques. Cool. I'll check it out.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, please. The next question I have, that might be part of it, but what's on your musical rotation right now?
Right now, I've been listening to that guy Black Nash that I was telling you about, and my friend Zach just sent me this crazy Brazilian record that, where is it? My friend Zach Piles, who's a really great producer in Atlanta.
Is he My Improvement Movement?
Yeah, I mean that dude is like criminally undervalued. Not really, but maybe, but he's just a super talented guy, and like I was so pleased that he worked with me on Betacam, and all the shit that he works on is like super fucking good. He's just one of those dudes where you're like, shit, man, like you know what the fuck's good. But this album by Milton Nascimento, it's Clube de la Esquina. It's a Brazilian record.
Oh, I've seen that album cover for sure.
Yeah, super, super big. Was like one of the most prolific things. I'm a huge fan of MPB, Arthur Verkai, all those kind of guys. But this record has been recently something I've been listening a lot to.
Nice.
Just because it's been pretty instrumental to me like that. Some Joni Mitchell too. Yeah, it's been great though. I've been working a job in Athens, so I have to commute more sometimes.
That's a week. Far drive.
So I have these more Yeah, it's all right. I work at a studio fixing gear, so it's kind of cool.
That is cool.
It's not a forever job, but it's just like one of those things I got to do right now. But it gives me some nice. I'm meeting tons of new people in the music scene over there, which is, cool. It's it's got a lot of history, that place,
right?
Which is cool. And it's just like everybody there is like, oh yeah, like this place there's 40 bars and they all have a venue, and like REM used to play here when they sucked, and now they're big. Yeah.
That's the one I always think of, this REM.
Yeah, that's me too. There's a lot though, I guess.
And like B-52s.
That's the one.
Yeah, those are the big two I always hear about. But there's someone else, Georgia Satellites maybe, or Drive-By Truckers or something.
Yeah, I mean, of Montreal,
Oh yeah, I forgot
they were a couple like contemporary artists. Yeah, Montreal's great. I can't remember the fucking dude's name. But yeah, I don't know. It's a cool. So that commute window has given me more time to put on records or listen, explore music. So that's been fun. Like I said, I don't always make the time for that.
Yeah, long drives are always helpful for that.
It's like going on tour.
Exactly. Well, the last question here before we go is, what is your favorite decade of music?
I mean, that album that I just showed you is from 1972. And I wish I could say from like 1965 to 1975.
That is a decade.
Because that is, yeah, because like, I really like this sound that was going on, where like it was like just after the 60s, and they had figured out how to make like good enough recording equipment where the fidelity was like, it wasn't like everything was sounded like shit, but it was like before music got so like controllable in the studio that you could like do things with like MIDI and like a lot of pre-planning. So you were still capturing bands in this like sort of like it wasn't perfect, but it was more perfect in the 60s, so they could do control. So like you'd get things like Hendrix in the early sections, but then you'd get things like CSNY, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, which I really like also because it's like multi-instrumentalist music, but it's got limitations based on the gear, so they're still leaning into what they can actually perform. And it's like also like this burgeoning of this early part of like psychedelic music without having a lot of effects on it. And I think that kind of style, that type of music is what I like to make. That's I think what I'm trying to make now, or just what I end up making. So I think I'm just inspired by that weird zone of like it's good enough to record, but it's still like we're still learning about what we can do with this new medium of multi-track, like of layerings and stuff. So yeah, I would say from there, I just really like all the music then. I think it's like right at the end, it's like music is starting to get super hyper commercialized, but not in a sense where like they're still like letting cool music happen before the late 70s, when I feel like everything was just like, and to now where it's like mostly about making money and like the speculation of the sound, not actually what anyone's playing. Like no one really, for better for worse, like music matters less now, but there's also so much more different types. So you kind of need to have both in order to have such a wide breadth of like people that can make and experience music. You kind of need to have it mean less in a sort of weird balance. So I felt like the 60s, that era was like where it was starting to change, but was still taking this creed of the old world with this new approach. So I don't know. I just really like the music out of that decade, especially from Brazil and the United States. There's some really fire fucking shit in there. Bernier and Cartier, Osmo Rolito, Arthur Verocai, all those fucking crazy motherfuckers. So, yeah, dude. That's a decade.
Yeah. 65 to 75. I would say that is probably one of my favorite times in history as well. I do love the 2010s, which is because that's when I really got into music, like creating music. So I think that had a pretty big impact on me. But now that I'm going back more into like the history of things, 65 to 75 seems to be like such an explosion of creativity, and it's hard to like find that in other decades. I mean, of course there are pockets, but it just seems like that decade, that 65 to 75 range, is when shit was like really getting crazy.
It's either that or like the 20s and 30s to like go see big band swing music and stuff. Like that shit would be fire. Or go see like I'd love to go see Debussy play or something, like in 1905 or something in France, like some actual like holy shit, that's just happening in the park in Paris. Like, oh,
that would be wild. No one's ever said like the 20s or 30s on this show, so there you go.
No, yeah, that would be really cool too. The roaring 20s, a little bit before, maybe like the post World War I, pre the Depression, like when the world was when America was very fucked up and inequitable and shit. But you know, the music was at least slamming.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, kind of like now. You know.
Awesome. Well, Klark Sound, thank you for joining me for an episode of On That Note. Everybody needs to check out your new songs, Piano Time and Offered, and also So You Go On and Two Sides. And actually, you have 2 more songs coming out tomorrow. So what are those?
2 more coming out tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm coming out with two called You Just Be You and Do or Die. They're actually super in the vein of this conversation we've been having today about not giving a fuck and just living your truth, because that's all you can try. That's all you
What
can
a
hope for.
great conversation to have before putting those out. And when this episode is out, your songs will be out, so everybody go check it out. And if you happen to be in Atlanta on November 2nd, check Klark Sound out at the 529.
It'll be good.
It'll be a good time.
Bring the heat. Bring the heat.
The little flame that you'll be
Cool.
holding in your hand.
Very much so, but not. We're not gonna throw it at you. We just gotta hold it, and not burn ourselves.
Lightly blow it into the audience.
Yes.
Cool. Well, Klark, thank you again for joining me, and hope you have a great day.
Thanks, dude. Talk to you
See ya.
later.
Bye.
Peace.
Thank you again for joining me for another episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling. If you haven't yet, please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, and you can even leave a comment down below to let me know who you're listening to. On that note, I'll see you guys next time.